In 1908, a broke young journalist sat across from the richest man in the world. Andrew Carnegie, the steel billionaire worth the equivalent of $500 billion today, leaned forward and said something that changed everything. He said, "I want you to spend the next 20 years interviewing the most successful people alive, and find out the secret behind all of it." That journalist's name was Napoleon Hill. And 29 years later, after interviewing over 500 of the wealthiest people in history, he wrote a book. That book sold over 100 million copies. And most people who read it still miss the point. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Think and Grow Rich isn't really about money. Yeah, it has the word rich right there in the title. But Napoleon Hill said the principles in this book work for anything: wealth, health, relationships, career, all of it. The people who read it looking for a get-rich-quick trick close to disappointed. The people who read it as a manual for the human mind, they're the ones whose lives completely transform. So today, we're breaking down the 10 most powerful lessons from this book. And we're going to pay special attention to Lesson 4, because it's the one most people casually skip over, and it might be the most important idea in the entire book. Let's get into it. Lesson 1, Desire, the starting point of all achievement. Lesson 1. And this is where it all begins. Napoleon Hill didn't say hope. He didn't say wish. He didn't say it would be nice if. He said desire. Burning, obsessive, consuming desire. He opens the book with the story of Edwin Barnes, a man who showed up at Thomas Edison's office with literally nothing. No money. No connections. No qualifications. He didn't even have enough for a train ticket. He rode a freight car to get there. But he had one thing: an obsession with becoming Edison's business partner. Not an employee. Not an assistant. A partner. Most people would have laughed him out of the building. Edison actually gave him a job, a low-level position, and Barnes spent years waiting for his moment. Most people don't realize this, but Barnes never wavered. While everyone else saw obstacles, he saw a path. And eventually, Edison gave him the opportunity to sell one of his inventions. Barnes made a fortune and became exactly what he said he would. Here's the question Hill is really asking you at the start of this book. Do you have a goal, or do you have a burning desire? Because goals are things you'd like to happen. Desires are things you will make happen, no matter what. That distinction? That's the whole foundation of everything that follows. Lesson 2, Faith. Visualize and believe in the attainment of your desire. Okay, so you've got the desire. Now here's where a lot of people start rolling their eyes. Hill talks about faith. And not necessarily religious faith, though it can be that too. He's talking about an unshakable, irrational, almost stubborn belief that what you want is coming to you. And here's the problem with most people. They want to believe. But deep down, there's a voice that keeps saying, "Who are you to think you could have that? People like you don't get that kind of life." Napoleon Hill would call that voice your worst enemy. Because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined. Feed it failure and doubt, and it will quietly work against every goal you've ever set. Feed it certainty, the absolute belief that success is inevitable, and it starts working for you. Connecting dots you didn't even know existed. Pulling you toward opportunities. Making you bolder. Hill talks about a technique he called autosuggestion, literally talking to yourself in the present tense as if the thing you want is already yours. Now I know, that sounds a little out there. But this is where it gets interesting. Virtually every high-performance coach, sports psychologist, and peak performance researcher today teaches a version of this same idea. Visualization. Affirmations. Mental rehearsal. It's not magic. It's neuroscience. And Napoleon Hill figured it out in 1937. Lesson 3. Specialized knowledge, your personal experiences and education. Here's a lesson that's going to make you rethink everything you were taught about education. Hill draws a sharp line between two types of knowledge. General knowledge, the kind you get in school. Facts, history, formulas. Broad and largely useless on its own. Specialized knowledge, deep expertise in a specific area that directly supports your goal. And he says something that genuinely shocked people at the time. Henry Ford barely had a formal education. But here's the thing. Ford understood something smarter. He said, "I don't need to know everything. I just need to know who to call." At his famous libel trial, lawyers tried to make Ford look stupid by asking him obscure general knowledge questions. Ford famously stopped them and said, "Why should I clutter my mind with this kind of information when I have men around me who can supply any knowledge I require?" Most people don't realize this, but the most successful people in the world aren't necessarily the smartest people in the room. They're the people who know exactly what they need to know, who to surround themselves with, and how to use specialized knowledge as a competitive weapon. The takeaway? Stop trying to know everything. Start going dangerously deep in the area that matters most to your goal. That focused expertise, combined with the right people, is what creates results. Lesson 4. The mastermind, the driving force, the one most people ignore. Okay. Here it is. Lesson 4. The one most people skim right past. The one that, if you truly understood it, might be the single most valuable idea in this entire book. Napoleon Hill calls it the mastermind principle. And at first, it sounds almost too simple to matter. Here it is. No individual has ever achieved lasting success alone. Every single person. Hill studied over 29 years, from Carnegie to Rockefeller to Ford to Edison. Every one of them had a mastermind group. A carefully chosen circle of people they met with regularly, shared goals with, challenged each other, and pushed each other beyond what any one of them could achieve alone. But here's the thing that blew my mind when I really sat with this. Hill says something almost mystical happens when two or more minds come together in perfect harmony toward a shared purpose. He calls it a third mind, an invisible intelligence that emerges from the group that is more powerful than any individual mind. Now, you can take that spiritually or scientifically. Either way, the results are documented. Carnegie built his empire with a mastermind group of 50 men. Ford had his inner circle. Edison had his. Every single titan in the book had one. But here's the problem. Most people go through life completely alone with their ambitions. They might mention their goals to a friend or family member, who immediately brings up every reason it won't work. And slowly, those goals die in isolation. This is where it gets interesting, because Hill says the quality of your inner circle is literally determining the ceiling of your success right now. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they pulling you up? Or are they pulling you back down to their level? Because whether you like it or not, you are the average of that group. Their beliefs about what's possible are slowly becoming your beliefs about what's possible. The most practical thing you can take from this entire video is this: find your mastermind. Deliberately. Intentionally. Find people who are already where you want to be. Who challenge your thinking. Who refuse to let you stay comfortable. That group will do more for your success than any book, course, or strategy ever could. Lesson 5. Imagination, the workshop of the mind. Napoleon Hill believed imagination was a literal faculty of the mind, and that most people let it sit completely unused. He describes 2 types of imagination. Synthetic imagination, rearranging existing ideas, concepts, or plans into new combinations. This is what most inventors and entrepreneurs use. Creative imagination, the kind that operates almost unconsciously, where hunches, insights, and flashes of brilliance come from, the kind that seems to come out of nowhere. But here's the problem with how most of us live. We've been trained since childhood to be practical. That's unrealistic. Be sensible. Stop daydreaming. And slowly, most people let their imagination atrophy. Like a muscle they stopped using. Hill says the men and women who changed the world, the ones we read about in history books, they had one thing in common. They refused to stop imagining. They sat with problems long enough for creative answers to surface. They followed hunches. They built entire industries around ideas that started as pure fantasy. Most people don't realize this, but your imagination isn't childish. It might be the most powerful business tool you own, and you're probably using it to imagine everything that could go wrong instead of everything that could go right. Lesson 6: Organized Planning. Turning desire into action. Here's where the dreaming has to meet the doing. And this is the step where a lot of people quietly fall apart. Hill is very clear. Desire without a plan is just daydreaming. He lays out a process. Write down exactly what you want. Set a specific deadline. Define exactly what you're willing to give in return. Because Hill believed everything has a price and the universe doesn't do freebies. Then build a plan. Start immediately. And keep going even when the plan fails, because it will. But here's what separates this lesson from generic advice you've heard 1,000 times. Hill says, temporary defeat is not failure. He studied over 500 successful people and found that nearly every single one had experienced major failure before their breakthrough. Some of them failed dozens of times. This is where it gets interesting. He tells the story of a man who gave up on a gold mine, literally stopped digging, just 3 feet from one of the largest gold deposits ever found. 3 feet. Someone else bought the land, called in a mining engineer, discovered the problem, dug 3 more feet, and struck gold. Hill uses that story to ask a brutal question: how many people quit just before their breakthrough? The answer, he believed, was almost everyone who ever failed. The plan matters. But the decision to never quit permanently matters more. Lesson 7: Decision, the mastery of procrastination. This one is short. But don't let that fool you. Hill analyzed 500 successful people and found one habit they all shared without exception. They made decisions quickly and changed them slowly. The average person makes decisions slowly, if at all, and changes them quickly the moment any pushback arrives. Think about how many things you've been thinking about for months, years. The business you haven't started. The investment you haven't made. The conversation you haven't had. Most people don't realize this, but procrastination is just fear with a polite excuse. I'm waiting for the right time. Translation, I'm afraid. I need to do more research. Translation, I'm afraid. I'll start on Monday. Translation, I'm afraid. Hill says every successful person he studied had developed the ability to make a call, even with incomplete information, and commit to it fully. Because a good decision made quickly and executed with full commitment almost always beats a perfect decision made too late. Speed of decision is a superpower, and it can be trained. Lesson 8: Persistence, the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. Napoleon Hill called persistence the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. But let me translate that into plain English. Persistence is what you do on the days when absolutely nothing is working, nobody believes in you, and every logical part of your brain is telling you to quit. Hill tells the story of a man named Darby who went west during the gold rush, found gold ore, and mined for months. Then the vein disappeared. He drilled more. Nothing. He gave up, sold all his equipment to a junkman for scrap value, and went home defeated. The junkman, remember him from lesson 6? Brought in an expert, discovered the vein had shifted just slightly, and struck one of the richest finds in Colorado history. Darby later said losing that gold was the greatest thing that ever happened to him, because he spent the rest of his life in insurance sales, and every time a door slammed in his face, he remembered the 3-foot rule, and kept going. He became one of the most successful insurance agents in the country. Most people don't realize this, but persistence isn't about being stubborn. It's about building a relationship with failure that doesn't break you. Every setback is just information. Adjust, refine, and keep moving. Lesson 9, the subconscious mind, the connecting link. This is the lesson that makes skeptics uncomfortable. And I get it. But hear me out, because the science here is actually wild. He'll believe the subconscious mind operates 24 hours a day. While you're awake, asleep, at dinner, in the shower, it never stops working. And here's the thing. It doesn't have an opinion about whether your thoughts are good for you. It simply takes whatever you feed it, thoughts, fears, beliefs, repetitions, and treats them as instructions. Feed it worry and it will look for evidence that things will go wrong. Feed it success and it will quietly, relentlessly, pull you toward it. This is where it gets interesting, because modern neuroscience has essentially confirmed what Hill was saying. The reticular activating system in your brain filters reality based on what you're focused on. Ever buy a new car and suddenly see that car everywhere? It was always there. You just weren't tuned in. Your subconscious works the same way with success. Hill's prescription was simple: feed it deliberately. Use repetition, emotion, and visualization. Write down your goals and read them twice a day, once before sleep, once upon waking. Make it a habit until your subconscious treats your desired outcome as normal. Because what the subconscious believes is normal, it works tirelessly to recreate. Lesson 10, The Sixth Sense, the Door to the Temple of Wisdom. Hill saved this one for last. And he even admits it's the hardest one to explain. He calls it the sixth sense, the part of the mind that receives hunches, intuitions, and flashes of inspiration that seem to arrive from nowhere. Now, whether you believe that's divine, subconscious, or just your brain pattern matching faster than conscious thought, the experience is the same. You just know something is right or wrong, and you can't explain why. Hill says this faculty only develops after you've mastered the other 9 principles. It's the reward that comes from years of burning desire, persistent effort, organized planning, and deliberately conditioning your subconscious mind. But here's the brutal truth about this lesson. Most people will never develop it. Not because they can't, but because they never commit fully enough to the other 9 steps to get there. They dabble with desire instead of burning with it. They plan halfway. They quit before the breakthrough. They let their inner circle drag them down. And then they wonder why that something more never seems to arrive. But the people who do commit, who do the work on all 9 of the earlier principles, Hill says they arrive at a place where decisions feel effortless, where the right path seems to reveal itself, where the right people appear at the right time. He called it wisdom. I'd call it the natural result of years of becoming the person your goals require you to be. Let's land this plane. Napoleon Hill spent 29 years studying the greatest success stories in modern history. And what he found wasn't a shortcut. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't a secret that the elites were hiding from you. It was a pattern. Burning desire. Unshakable faith. Specialized knowledge. A powerful inner circle. A trained imagination. A concrete plan. Decisive action. Relentless persistence. A conditioned subconscious. And eventually, wisdom. 10 principles. 1 through line. The people who changed the world didn't have better luck than you. They didn't have more talent. In many cases, they started with less than you have right now. What they had was this: they believed it was possible before there was any evidence that it was. And they refused to stop until the world caught up to what they already knew inside. Here's the question Hill would leave you with. What would you attempt, right now, if you knew it was impossible to fail? Because whatever your answer is, that's your desire. That's your starting point. Everything else is just the work. If you watched this far, I want to know, which of these 10 lessons hit you hardest? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely read every single one. And if you want more breakdowns like this, books that actually rewire how you think, not just what you know, hit subscribe. We do this every week. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.